Florography, which is by Jessica Rowe, and The Language of Flowers by Kate Greenway. And it's interesting because last year's program we talked about Kate Greenway and looked at her fabulous buttons. So this is kind of a tie-in. She has her own little book and you need a magnifying glass to read it. But there's hundreds of flowers in a little book and their meaning. Buttons have been used a long time, I'm sure, as most of you know. And actually, gold buttons were worn by Pocahontas way back in 1616. So those were her buttons. Florography is really the Victorian cryptological language through the use of flowers. Really beginning in Turkey in early 1700s. And about a couple decades later, it made its way to England. They published it in a list in 1809, and about 10 years later, they made it into a dictionary so there can be a complete language. And hopefully we'll help you tonight to develop some of those words, that language, this evening. Basically, the Victorians are pretty proper people, and it was improper to show your emotions. So that is one reason they developed this means of communication and showing what they felt, how they felt through flowers. And the Tussie Mussies, which I forgot to mention on the introductory slide. I know there are some Tussie Mussie buttons like that one. Let me see if I see. Oh, it's going the wrong way. Okay, on that button, the Tussie Mussie, which you can make by gathering up your flowers and what your message is. And a lot of the women then would wrap them tightly with ribbon and have the long stringers hanging down. Or they might wear a little Tussie Mussie on their clothes to show what their feelings. Okay, so I'm going to ask you if you can recognize the flower. We'll see how well. This is not a quiz. I'll tell you which ones are on the quiz. But some of you might want to take some notes because we'll look at some buttons with a lot of flowers on them at the end and we'll see what you've learned. Can anybody recognize this flower? Okay, and I'll give you a hint. Yes, I'm going alphabetically, so that might So this is an anemone, as close as I could find. Well, I have some pictures of prints of the buttons or of the flowers. I also, the middle one are the anemones that I grow in my yard. And you can see a couple buttons that barely look close. Now, a lot of these buttons, it's hard to tell. Some of them might look like other plants, but this one I picked out, in particular, the China button that I really believe it looks like an anemone. And this is a close-up of the flower. So you can see the petals, the petal shape, the kind of little dips at the end, and the large stamen in the middle. Anybody recognize this one? Yes, applesauce. Oh, and let me back up a minute. On the anemone is forsaken love, and I'm not going to give you the background of all of these because we would be here for a long time. But the forsaken love for anemone came through Greek mythology. For anemone, the goddess of love. They say they sprung from Aphrodite's tears. But a lot of these go back to the gods and different things, Romans and Greeks. And that was then for forsaken love. Okay, we'll move back to apple blossom. And apple blossom is meant more for preference, peace, love, and fertility. And this would mean preference for a suitor. And you might return that with a yellow carnation, which meant you did not want to return the feelings to show your disdain. Well, a number of these different flowers show spring blooming and show kind of a rebirth of life. And so this is kind of one of those as well. On this one. Oops. It's on mine.
It's there now.
Oh. Okay, it looks like a daisy. So we're still in the age.
Aster.
Aster. And one of the differences between the daisies, or really even chrysanthemums, some of them will look like that, are the number of petals. Asters are really more finely petaled, and I actually have 2 buttons painted, and they're very similar. But this one has a lot more petals, or quite a few more petals than the other. So this would be my aster button. And the aster is known for daintiness. Again, you can see the more finely detailed on the petals. Shows a couple buttons here, one of fabric and one of brass and steel. Okay, this one might be a little tricky.
There's a lot there, you know.
Any guesses?
Still names?
No.
Good question. Filbert. Filbert. This one, no.
This I chose Belladonna. That deadly nightshade. And it was Belladonna, named for an Italian called Beautiful Beautiful Lady. And actually, a belladonna we use a lot in pharmaceuticals. Actually, you might find, even though it's poisonous, you find it in motion sickness pills, in painkillers, and cold and flu remedies. So a lot of these flowers will have medicinal purposes as well. Now, can you tell me what that is? How about a buttercup? And basically, buttercups, you are radiant with charm. Old yellow faces. Yes, Calla Lily, you saw that. Meanings: purity, white, rebirth, beauty. Hard to see on the black on black. Calla Lily. Any guesses on this one? Might be a little bit tough.
Dahlia.
A begonia.
Begonia. Oh, camellia.
Could be a peony, but I likened it a little bit more to the camellia, meaning longing from youth. That came from a mid-1800s novel about a tragic love story.
They're all treasures.
Carnation.
Yeah. Carnation, mother's eternal love, heartache. And it's basically traced back to biblical times where Virgin Mary's tears fell, carnations would grow.
You notice it.
This will be an easy one. Yes, it's not a flower.
Cattail.
Yes, but it is with flowers, and often you find buttons with cattails with the flowers. Cattails, peace and prosperity. Used, so that's a wish if you want to put a cattail in there. Wish them prosperity. cherry blossoms. And again, since they're so prevalent in the Japanese culture, it refers back to the fleeting nature of life, new beginnings, life and death, that beauty and mortality. Yep. Chrysanthemum, condolences. And this is often used in funeral arrangements. One of the reasons that mine got started is back in Soul's Day was in November in Europe. And one of the flowers still blooming in November would have been the chrysanthemums. So there's some practicality to why certain flowers mean something. So condolences. Any guesses? Clematis. So it gets its ingenuity and cleverness from its twining, vine-like ability to grow in anything. That's actually my mailbox. So it kind of takes over a little bit, but that's how it got its name, for ingenuity and cleverness to grow in this place. All right. And this one is on your quiz, so I want you to raise your hand if you know what it is.
Clover.
Oh, right there. Clover. Vicky, a prize.
Oh, this is the prize.
Uh-huh. You get a little prize if you answer. So what does clover mean? Should be. Say good luck. It really goes back all the way to the early 1600s. The Irish believe also that carrying one in their pocket allowed you to see the fairy. So you might try that. If you want to see fairies. I couldn't find a button with just the flower, but this has her hat with the flower.
Columbine.
Yes. Columbine.
Columbine?
Columbine. It's from an Italian character who was the mistress of a jester. And so if you look at the shape of the bloom, it kind of mirrors what a jester's outfit is, without the belt. So foolishness. What I got its name. Foolishness. It might be a little bit tougher. How about with these? I often refer to as cornflower, and I usually use the name bachelor's buttons.
Should have known that.
Because the men would wear those as a sign of availability. And if it faded quickly, that means that the love of the woman was not reciprocated to the man. So bachelor's buttons. It should be an easy one.
Or.
What blooms before even?
Oh, crocus. Crocus.
Crocus.
Right.
Crocus, yes. Cheerfulness and youthful glee, as you know, when they bloom early. It's cheerful, nice to see something other than brown. So, some of the first flowers to bloom. Okay. Daffodil, unrequited love. First of all, a little side note that both jonquils and daffodils belong to the Narcissus family. And jonquils are a specific variety of a daffodil. So that flowers of the month one was a tough because it had a jonquil, a daffodil, and a narcissus. And they would be very hard to distinguish. Jonquils are usually being a specific type, are more fragrant, yellow, and multiple blooms. But that was still hard to find on a button. Unrequired love has a little bit of a story. It was a Greek legend of a proud hunter who saw his reflection in the pond and got stuck on that reflection and basically dies. So whenever you see the daffodils, that was marking that person's grave. So it unrequired love. He loved himself too much. It can also mean hope, joy, early blooming in spring, if you look at the more positive note. Okay, this is a quiz question, so raise your hand. Go ahead.
Daisy.
Daisy. And it means?
Love, innocence. Is it innocence?
Okay. Yes. Innocence. Innocence, childhood, purity. Goes back to Norse mythology. It's tied to the goddess of fertility, motherhood, and childbirth. And the Celts and Romans also had it in their mythology as well. This next one I thought I wouldn't find, but I finally did find one, and it's very common. Yes, a dandelion. Nice little cute bud. Imagine. Dandelion is divination. Ability to foretell the future, wishes, fortune telling. Did you learn when you were little that make a wish, blow the puffball? Apparently also can foretell the weather. If you blow on the puff and it doesn't dissipate, then it's going to be bad weather. If it does, it's going to be good weather, which kind of makes sense because if the air is humid and more dense, then it's not going to go anywhere. So the air's drier. Okay. 4 petals. Goblin has 4 petals. Our love will overcome adversity. The blooms are delicate. The trunks of the trees of dogwoods are rough, strong, structured. So that meaning comes from it will live and overcome harsh conditions or adversity. Now, I had this button as plaster, and I knew I recognized it as one of the berries from something. And after my research, I found it is the bloom or berry, so to speak, of a Coosa dogwood, a particular type of dogwood. So that's actually where the leaves match and everything. So it's from a Coosa dogwood. So if you see that on the tray, hopefully you remember it is a Coosa dogwood. The next one is a quiz question. Raise your hand.
Edelweiss.
Okay. Edelweiss. And it means?
What was that?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
Where's,
What does it mean?
oh, what does it mean? Oh, it means, courage and daring.
Okay. Very good.
Yes, that right?
Yep. Your Edelweiss grows high in the Alps, so it takes courage and daring to climb up to the tops of the Alps to pick the Edelweiss. That's where it got this name, courage and daring.
Forget me not.
All right. Forget me nots. A nice little story with that German origin. A young couple in love, betrothed to marry, were walking along a river, and the woman stopped to admire these pretty little blue flowers. So her future husband stopped to pick them up and slipped and fell in the river.
Oh.
So as he was swept away, he threw the little blue flowers back on the side, back to her, and said, "Forget me not." This next one is probably a tough one, but it really kind of matches, I think, what it is. Does anybody have a guess? No.
Oh, yeah.
I match it with fritillaries. It is a spring blooming bulb. You don't see it too often, but it's associated with humility, grace, and modesty. Again, the drooping flowers I mentioned are mean for humility. There are different varieties of that. You can see the bottom one is kind of checkered. So actually it means spots on a dice. That's somehow where they got the name fritillaries from. Next one was what some of you guessed a minute ago. And there is a button, title fuchsia and the scroll. Trust, confiding, love, grace, resilience, and strength. Fuchsias are kind of tough plants. If you forget to water them and they'll come back. So that's where it got its name. This one?
No, there you go.
Heather?
Yes. Heather. Luck and protection. It is Scottish folklore. It grows in the acidic bogs in Scotland. And as a warrior lay dying in the battle, he asked that a piece of heather be taken to his fiancée, to his bride-to-be. And when she got it, her tears fell on it and it turned to white. So particularly the white heather means the luck and protection. The next one is a quiz question. Nobody got quiz question?
Well, you guess over there.
Honeysuckle. Yes, honeysuckle. Devotion and affection. Honeysuckle. The Victorians believed that sleeping with a little bit of honeysuckle under your pillow would make you dream of your love. We might try it. Okay, the next one is a quiz question. Anyone? Yes. Iris. Iris. Please forgive me. It has a little bit of a story too. Hyacinth was this handsome young man that Apollo beloved. And another individual was jealous of his love for hyacinths. And when they were in a discus match, he knocked the discus and made it go off balance, and it killed the hyacinth. So apparently where his blood fell, hyacinths grow. As Apollo begged for forgiveness. All right, so the next one. Boastfulness, heartlessness. It's kind of a sad meaning for a beautiful plant, but they're large seed heads, blooms, and they really have few seeds in them. So basically, you could say it's full of hot air, or it's all show and no substance. Boastful and heartless. And next one was a quiz question. That one should be easy.
Oh, yeah.
Raise your hand.
Iris.
Okay. Iris. Valor, wisdom, faith. Come from the Egyptians. They used to crown the sphinx with iris. And that middle one, there's actually two blooms there of an iris, so they're quite large. Guesses on that? Okay. There's a lot of different kinds of lily. This one is more of a day lily. So we have a day lily, an Asiatic lily in the middle, and Easter lilies. So the day lily is more for renewal resilience, as they bloom for a day, but they come back and rebloom again another day, the next day. The Easter lily is more associated with purity, being white. And on one is the day lily, and the one with multicolors is your Asiatic lilies. This one should be easy. Return of happiness. This was English folklore this time when Saint Leonard slayed the last dragon in the kingdom. He could return to his solitude and be happy, the return of happiness. And lilies grew where he slayed or where he would wound the dragon. So that's why they grew everywhere. This one. Need help? We're in the M's.
Magnolia.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Oh.
Magnolia. Particularly in the south, they grow quite big trees, 30, 40 feet tall. They're nice, large, branching structures, show that dignity. This one might be a little tough too. We're still in M. Yep. Marigold, meaning grief. Morning glory. Meaning affection and love, transient nature of life. Morning glories bloom for a few hours in the morning, but they return always. And the old varieties, many do, reseed themselves very, very, very readily. So it's impossible to get rid of them after planting. So I guess that's not only a hope of fresh start. This is a little bit difficult to see, but we're in O now. It smells beautiful. You should know it if you live in Florida.
Orange blossom.
Orange blossom.
Orange blossom. It, all the way back to ancient Greece, the orange blossoms were used. They would grow them in the greenhouses that they made. Queen Victoria married Prince Albert in 1840, and she wore a headdress of orange blossom. Quiz question. Raise your hand. Orchid. Here we are. Make it shit. Orchid. Now, it used to be before micro-propagation and growing things in test tubes that orchids were very hard to find and they were very expensive. And that was the case in Victorian days. But it does represent elegance and beauty. And really only the very wealthy Victorians could afford to have. This should be easy. You occupy my thoughts. Now this one is a variety of this particular plant. We're in the peas, or a type of the plant, I should say. It's a tree peony.
Oh.
And I haven't really studied the satsumas because they aren't too, they're a lot, very, very similar. But this is very different from a lot of the other buttons. So I concluded that this was probably their tree peony. Bashfulness. Ancient Greece individuals would believe that the nymphs could turn themselves into peony flowers so that the humans couldn't find them. Got those stripes on this one. Petunias. Anger and resentment. Really don't know how they got its name for that one. This is easy. Joy, hope, goodwill. And of course, associated with Florida, and again, not much is known of how it's got its name, but living in Florida, growing up in Florida, I know that the poinsettias will even bloom in December. So again, probably a flower that was available during the Christmas season. Okay. Poppy. You had a Greek myth. Poppies grew in the land of the dead. Of course, we look at opium poppies and thus eternal sleep. Primrose. Early youth. They bloom early. They'll take the cold. A lot of different varieties. What I found that was similar, there's single petals, multiple petals, doubles. So it's hard to kind of match that particular button. This one we see growing along the roadsides. Green anslace, meaning sanctuary. The blooms that you see in the picture will kind of close up, providing kind of protection. Queen Anne's lace, though, does look like poison hemlock. The blooms are very similar. And I always tell my students there's a little black dot in the center. Looks like a little black bug, usually. And then you know for sure that that is Queen Anne's lace. This one's the one that we had on our quiz, which is rose. Okay. Of course, rose is love, but you kind of have to be careful because it might depend on the color. White, innocent love, your more pink are blossoming romance. Yellow is decrease of love or jealousy. And then red is really passionate love. So you kind of have to be particular about what color rose you pick. And I kind of like this button. It's in the book called Mighty Like a Rose. The little boy in the middle of the rose. And one of the questions at the bottom was, what is the most common flower that you find on buttons? I looked at one of my enamel cards and every one of the enamels had roses on it. Every one. Sunflower, false riches, ancient Inca. They believed that the sunflower symbolized the sun god, and they had fields of them. And when the Spanish landed, they thought they had found a lot of gold, which of course they didn't. So thus, false riches. Sweet Williams, or dianthus, meaning gallantry. They don't know for sure. Maybe William Shakespeare or William the Conqueror were gallant men, where they got the name gallantry.
Thistle.
Well, as you can imagine, hatred or dislike, resilience, strength, and determination. If you have even a fraction of a root of thistle, it will grow. And they did a study out west, and within 1 year, it had like over 1,000-mile length of root system.
Oh, goodness.
So you learn to hate them. They're very difficult to control.
Trillium.
Right. Yes. In the spring, they grow early. Purity and recovery. 3 petals, 3 leaves, 3 sepals. So it also represents Holy Trinity, a balance of harmony and purity. Again, color might make a difference. Yellow, hopeless love. Red, I declare my love to or for you. And then more of a lavender, beautiful eyes. So tulips, again, can take on different shapes, fullness, depending on what kind. Quiz question? Violet, and what does it mean?
Modesty.
Thank you. Modesty. Again, drooping blooms. So we also saw bluebells and fritillaria, meaning something similar to modesty. Water lily, purity of heart and rebirth. Pink can mean joy and friendship. Red, passion and romance. Or blue, calm and beauty. The purity of heart and rebirth. The blooms do close up at night, but they open up the next day. Another non-blooming one flower, but wheat is often used in buttons, meaning riches and abundance for a bountiful harvest. Wisteria, daffodils, good luck, success, longevity. We're to Z now. All right, Zania. Everlasting friendship. They're easy to grow, receive themselves on the old varieties. So Victorians associated them with everlasting friendships. Can you identify this flower, which we covered?
A fish.
Oh, like a dianthus or carnation. Can you see anything in the button? Yep. Carnation lady. All right, when you start to pair, a lot of buttons have a combination. So rose and forget me not, new romance, so don't forget me. Rose and violet, passion, love, but modest passion. Rose and morning glory. Rose again, love. Morning glory, a new affection, the combination, a new affection. A marriage bouquet, a rose for your true love, dahlia for commitment, morning glory for affection, and ivy for fidelity. Bouquet for friendship, zinnia, we just mentioned, everlasting love, apple blossom for preference, pansy for a friend you think of often, and eucalyptus strengthening the bond. A bouquet for courting might be rose, blossoming romance, cornflower or bachelor buttons of hope and love, sweet William for being gallant to show their affection, and honeysuckle for devoted affection. For sympathy, we mentioned chrysanthemums for condolences, marigold for grief, lily of the valley for better days ahead, cypress for mourning, and mint for consolation. A bouquet for new beginnings, crocus, you mentioned youthful glee, daisy, innocence and purity, lilac for first love, baby's breath for purity and innocence, and wheat then for riches. But taking all that, this is one of the buttons I really like. Can you see any meaning there? We have cattails, peace and prosperity, water lilies, purity of heart, a Japanese iris, valor and wisdom. I don't know exactly if that means the frog has valor, wisdom. I think it's purity of heart if he's going after the duck, or peace. But anyway, so not all buttons might have a meaning. Many different flowers in this particular button, and if you take some time and really look at the buttons now, you might see that it's not one or two different flowers in this button, but there's many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different, at least different flowers in that one particular button. I didn't get a picture of a sweet pea, but sweet peas mean thank you for a lovely time.